Welcome back to the deep dive. It's a new year, and you know how it is. Everyone's looking for ways to, I don't know, just like make it their best year yet. That's why we're doing this deep dive today. You guys shared Ali Abdaal's YouTube video with us, 6 habits to make 2025 your best year yet. And, well, we're ready to get into it. Break it down, especially for you listening.
Yeah, we're going to go way beyond just like summarizing it. We're going to really look at, the why behind these habits, how they all connect, and what you can actually take away from them for yourselves.
Okay, so let's dive into Ali Abdaal's first habit. It really kind of I don't know, throws a wrench in how most of us think about goal setting. He says we should ditch those year-long resolutions and instead go for something he calls quarterly quests. Have you heard of this before?
Yeah, it's a really interesting strategy. So, basically you're focusing on just 3 or 4 key goals every 90 days. And it just feels so much more manageable than trying to do, everything at once for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea is actually something that you see in a lot of, business strategy frameworks too.
That makes sense. Do you have examples of those frameworks?
Yeah, sure. There are these books, The 12-Week Year and Traction. They talk about how powerful these shorter cycles are for businesses to help them achieve, real progress. So it makes sense that that would work for personal goals too.
Right. Breaking things down into smaller pieces. Okay, I like that. So Abdaal, he also hosts these free quarterly alignment workshops to help people set these quests, What do you think the value is in something like that?
I think it's a really smart idea because you're not only getting guidance on how to actually set your goals, you're also tapping into a community, right? Like a community of people who are kind of in the same boat. So there's that sense of accountability and, just shared motivation that you get from that.
It's like you have a built-in support system, which, I mean, come on, we all need that, right? Okay, so let's say you set your quarterly quest. How do you stay on track? That's where Abdaal's second habit comes in. It's called the weekly reset ritual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just take I don't know, maybe 20 minutes every week to just think back on the past week and then make a plan for the week ahead.
So it's like a check-in with yourself to see where you're at and if you need to adjust things. This seems like, pretty classic productivity advice, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
If you've read David Allen's Getting Things Done, this is super similar. It's all about staying aligned with those goals, making little course corrections as you go so that later on you're not completely off track.
Right. And this is where I thought Abdaal had this really clever idea. In his weekly reset template, he has a step to review your quarterly quests. It seems so basic, but why do you think that's so important?
It's like the glue that holds it all together. Because it's really easy to just get caught up in the, the day-to-day.
Yeah.
I kind of lose sight of that bigger picture. So if you look at your quests every week during that reset, it makes sure that what you're doing every day is actually, moving you towards those bigger goals.
It's like a little reminder, right? Is what I'm doing this week going to help me get to what I really want? Okay, I love that. So we've set the quest. We've got the weekly reset. Now let's talk about how we actually start working on those weekly priorities. Abdaal's third habit is this thing called the morning manifesto. It sounds kind of intense, but it's really just a quick journaling exercise, right?
It's not about spending an hour writing every morning, just a quick strategic 2 minutes to focus on what really matters before you get into, all the crazy stuff of your day.
And he has these 2 questions he asks. First one is, how are those weekly priorities going? Which we've already kind of touched on. But the second one is really interesting. What's today's adventure going to be? What do you think about that?
It's really cool, I think, because it changes your mindset. Instead of just reacting to whatever happens to come your way that day, you're choosing how you want to approach the day. You're aligning your actions with what you actually want to do.
So it's about making a conscious choice. Instead of just, opening email or whatever first thing. Okay, so we've got the quest, the reset, and we're starting our days with intention. But how do we make sure we're really focusing on those priorities during the day?
That's where habit number 4 comes in, the focus log.
Yes. This one really, spoke to me. Abdaal tells this story about how he was trying to find time to write his book. And his coach gave him this really simple advice. Just track the minutes. Literally, how many minutes you actually spend writing. It's amazing how sometimes we don't even realize, where our time is actually going.
That's so true. We often think we're spending more time on things than we are, and then we're surprised by how much time we, waste on distractions. The focus log just, brings this awareness. That can be really helpful.
And it's so interesting, right? Just logging the focused minutes, it actually made him more focused overall. It's By tracking it, you stay on track.
It's like this accountability thing, I think. You know you're going to log it, so you're more aware of when you get distracted.
Yeah.
And you can get back on track faster. Plus,
hmm
when you see those minutes adding up, it can be really motivating.
So it's like this positive feedback loop, right? More tracking, more focus, more motivation. I love that. Ready for habit number 5?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this one is a bit different. It's about something that's so important, but that a lot of us, I think, kind of neglect. It's our social connections. Abdal's calls it standing order social events.
Yeah. He's really big on making sure you're nurturing those relationships, especially, as we all get busier with work and stuff. And his approach is so simple, really. It's just like schedule those social events. Make them non-negotiable appointments in your calendar.
So it's like having a regular date night with your partner, or a weekly brunch with friends, or game night with family. These aren't things you try to like squeeze in. They're recurring events that you prioritize. Why do you think this works so well?
I think it takes the pressure off. You don't have to like constantly be coordinating schedules. With a standing event, whoever can make it shows up. No pressure.
Yeah, it removes that mental burden of trying to plan something new every time. Abdal mentioned that he and his wife have 2 standing date nights a week. And he says that's one of the big reasons why their relationship is so strong. It's a great example, I think, of how such a simple habit can have a huge impact.
For sure. It just shows you how powerful consistency and like intentionally connecting with people can be.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for the last habit?
Yeah, bring it on.
This one is for anyone who's like juggling a million things and always feeling like there just isn't enough time in the day. It's called multimodality multitasking. Okay, I gotta say. Usually when I hear multitasking advice, I kind of roll my eyes. It feels like they just want you to do more and more and more. But Abdal's approach seems different.
Yeah, you're right. This is not about trying to do 2 things at once that need a ton of focus. It's about being strategic, about how you pair activities together. Like, think about listening to an audiobook while you're doing laundry or catching up on a podcast on your commute.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference. You're using those pockets of time that would normally just be wasted. So it's like creating more time for learning or working on personal projects without having to give up other stuff.
Exactly. And Abdal, he takes it even further. He uses this app, VoicePal, to plan his videos while he's grocery shopping.
That's amazing. I love that he's like finding these creative ways to make the most of his time. This could be really useful for a lot of people, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And with all the new AI tools that are coming out now, multitasking is only going to get easier. Imagine using like voice to text to write emails while you walk, or dictating ideas for a project during your commute.
It's like a whole new world of productivity. And that brings us to the end of Abdal's 6 habits for making it a stellar year.
Wow, we've covered like a lot, huh?
Yeah.
From those quarterly quests instead of yearly goals,
Yeah.
all the way to like finding those little moments for productivity with the, what was it called? Multimodality, multitasking.
Yeah, it's crazy how these habits that seem so small can actually make such a big difference in how we, approach our goals and just like life in general.
Definitely. And you know what I think is really cool? It's not just about getting more stuff done. These habits are about like building a life that's more intentional, more connected, and in the end, just more fulfilling.
Totally. And that's what I really like about Abdal's approach. It's not productivity for the sake of being productive. It's about using these tools, these strategies to actually create a life that we enjoy.
Exactly. And that's something I think we should really emphasize here. It's not about copying Abdal's system exactly. It's about taking these ideas and figuring out how they fit into your own life, your own goals, your own situation.
Right. Find what works for you. Maybe that means starting with just one of these habits, see how it feels, or maybe you like pick and choose different things from each one and create your own system. It's all about trying things out and seeing what clicks.
Yeah, there's no like one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to productivity. Part of the fun is figuring out what works for you and then like adjusting it as you go.
Okay, so let's imagine our listener who sent us this video. Maybe they're feeling a little overwhelmed by everything they want to do this year. What advice would you give them?
I'd say start small. Don't try to do all 6 habits at once. Pick one that you really connect with, maybe the weekly reset ritual or the morning manifesto, and just do that consistently for a few weeks. See how it feels, what kind of impact it has on your life, and then once you feel good about that one, you can add another one.
Yeah, that's such good advice. It's easy to get excited and want to change everything overnight, but then you end up feeling overwhelmed. And then you give up. It's like trying to go from, I don't know, never exercising to running a marathon. You're setting yourself up to fail.
Exactly. Real change happens slowly, one step at a time. And the cool thing about these habits is they all connect in a way. So as you start doing one, you'll find that it makes the others easier too.
It's like a synergy thing, right? Like once you're doing your weekly resets, it might be easier to figure out your daily adventure for the morning manifesto, or maybe when you track your focus time, you find you have more time for that multimodality, multitasking.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that works for you and grows as you grow.
You know, even if you don't end up doing all six perfectly, just
Mhm.
thinking about them, reflecting on them, that's valuable in itself, I think.
Totally. It's about being more aware, more intentional with your time and energy.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about these habits not just being about productivity, but about creating a more fulfilling life. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. It's about making sure your actions are aligned with your values when you know what's important to you and you're working towards those things. It gives your life a sense of purpose.
So it's about figuring out what really matters and then using these habits to make more time for those things.
Exactly. And that might be different for everyone. For some people, it's spending time with family and friends. For others, it's being creative or making a difference in the world.
It's about creating a life that feels real and true to who you are.
Yeah, I like that. And that's what I think Abdal is trying to say with these 6 habits. They're not just a bunch of rules. They're a way to create a life that's productive and meaningful.
I love that. So wrap this up. What's the key takeaway for our listener? Who's on this journey to make 2025 their best year yet?
I would say be curious and experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things. Figure out how to make these habits work for you. And most importantly, have fun.
Such good advice. It's about the journey, not just the destination. So for everyone listening, as you start this new year, be kind to yourself, stay curious, keep experimenting until you find what works best. You know, as we're talking about all this, I'm thinking about how these habits could, like, work together in some really interesting ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like what if you took that multimodality, multitasking, and combined it with one of the other habits?
That's what you mean. That's a cool idea, like layering the strategies.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
say you're working on your quarterly quest and you have to do some research. You could listen to like a podcast or an audiobook about it while you're going for a walk or even just like doing chores.
That's so smart. You're getting 2 things done at once. But like not half-assing either one, right?
right. And it goes back to that whole intentionality thing. You're using that time in a way that like
Yeah.
actually helps you reach your goals.
Yeah, it's not just about multitasking to be busy.
Yeah.
It's about being smart about how you spend your time.
Exactly. It's like finding those little hidden moments of productivity and then boom, using them strategically.
I like that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these habits,
Yeah.
what really stood out to you?
That's a good question. For me, it's that focus on the why. It's not just about following these rules, but like understanding the reason behind them, how they can help you build the life you want.
I'm with you there.
It's about that sense of purpose.
Exactly. And I also love that idea of, starting small and experimenting. It takes the pressure off, right? You don't have to be perfect from day one.
Definitely.
So to everyone listening, as you work on making 2025 amazing, remember that it's okay to take it slow.
Try things out.
See what works for you.
And remember, it's not about being successful in some, like, picture-perfect way.
Yeah.
It's about making a life that feels real and true to you.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful, inspiring, and we wish you all the best for an incredible year.
Happy diving.